So Scott, you and I, we had a real good time at Oshkosh. Everybody thinks about airplanes flying around, but that wasn't why we were there, was it?
No, we had a big HF station sitting there, the nice 7851, 200 watts, nice antenna up, and talking all over the country. We also had VHF, UHF with D-Star. That gave us a really nice opportunity to play around, getting connected. One of my favorite shots was the guy that came by that we had, it was Michelle from Australia on the VHF, UHF station. And a guy came by from Scotland and said, "Hey, can we talk to my buddies back home on the reflector?" And she managed to confuse the hell out of those guys because she shows up on their reflector in Scotland with a U.S. call sign or an Australian accent, and those guys were incredibly confused as to what was going on.
Yeah, I remember that. I mean, while they both to us had an accent that was, well, hers wasn't even similar. But you'd think, okay, it sounds like the Queen's English. And yeah, it was almost a revolution right there, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, it's like, well, in this case, it was 3 countries separated by a common language, right? So, in fact, it was hilarious because they would respond in their brogue and she didn't understand it. So he was standing behind her to translate for her into English, I guess, whatever. Somebody's English.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting listening to her and confusing the daylights out of those guys. But the one that I like the most is where the gentleman from Germany came over. He was just looking at all the airplanes. First time he was at Oshkosh, he was excited enough as it was until he saw the hex beam antenna. And at that point, he's like, oh my God, that's both my passions, airplanes and ham radio. But that wasn't the funny part. The funny part was when he's sitting there operating. And you and I both know what happens after 2:00 in the afternoon there.
Super loud air show right overhead and behind us.
Yeah, he's working a pile up. He's talking. He's having a great time. You see this big grin, and then all of a sudden you see befuddlement in his face of what is that noise? And here's I think it was the F-35 just kicking. We're at the end of the runway over by the Warbirds area, so everything seems to go from right to left at the air show. And we're at the left end of the airfield, and as he kicks the rear around and then hits the afterburner, just lights it up. There's nothing else that you can do except.
You have to, what is that? You absolutely have to look. The other one is they'll do their minimum radius turn around center point, right? And as the aft end of the aircraft comes around, it gets unbelievably loud. Like unusably loud. You can't talk on the radio anymore, and you have to look.
And you're awestruck looking at it, and then all of a sudden he realizes that he still has his foot on the push to talk, on the pedal, and then he comes back and starts telling everybody what he just saw.
Yeah, they don't really have air shows in Germany like that, and well, nobody has air shows like that, but just in general, they don't really have big air shows in Germany.
I don't think seeing an F-35 fly over your country would be called an air show.
You're right. And Oshkosh, of course, there's nothing like it. We've got all those, the Warbirds, right? The Corsairs and Mustangs right behind us.
Yeah.
When those guys all fire up at the same time and warm up and sit back there, warm up and warm up and warm up, it gets pretty loud. They're like 200 feet behind us.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that got our attention. We were both there. It was funny. I was shooting from the front of the Corsair, and then you go, "Hey, did you see this?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm right at the edge of your camera. You missed me." We were shooting the same airplane for warm up had to be a half an hour.
Right. Yeah, those things are. I always wonder if they actually waited. They can't possibly have waited that long in World War II, but now they're trying to be nice to those things.
Well, I know on that type of engine from my motorcycle, you have to let it really warm up before you really give fuel to it, or you're going to blow a head gasket. So it's one of the things you got to be careful of. But we didn't do as many Qs this year as we did the previous year because we missed Randy very much. But I did get the QSL cards before I flew out here. It's a much larger box. It weighs a lot more. So we got more QSL cards this year. We
were close, though. On the voice stuff, we did pretty well. Yeah, not so much. There was virtually no digital, but we we did a little better, I think, on the voice.
And then we had TJ come up from Chicago, and then, gosh, I can't remember the other guy. Those guys ran a lot of CW keys for
With
us.
their key, it's always funny to me. They went to an air show with a CW key in their bag, so they could come play radio, right?
Well, TJ knew to bring one because the ones that I carry usually are busted up, and sure enough, he left with my keys to rebuild them for me.
Oh, nice.
So that was nice of him to do that. Appreciate it, TJ. Those of you that are watching this and you haven't seen your QSL cards yet, it's Scott's fault because he hasn't sent me the logs yet.
The log. Yep, that's right.
I think you can email that one to me soon.
Well, now I'm under pressure, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So explain the station, because while I brought the equipment up, you're the one that did the assembly of it.
Yeah, so we had a Radio Waves hex beam up on a 30-foot mast, about a little over 30 foot up. And we generally,
it was a U.S. Tower ALM 31.
Oh, that gorgeous
Give
tower.
that plug in there, yeah.
That's right. It was that gorgeous tower attached to the back of the coach. It looks like the coach should be going down at an angle with that thing on the back of it. But
yeah, I don't travel with it connected there. I stow it underneath. That way there's no one, something's going to fall off the back of your RV.
Yeah, it's a massive tower. It's very impressive. Nice and stout. And the hex beam is large, but of course it doesn't have any serious wind load. It's survived a couple storms in the past, like some pretty severe winds and spinning around. But
Oshkosh is always an adventure of some type. We either have one year where it's unbelievably hot, so hot the concrete sweats and you have to worry about slipping and falling. But I have been through 4 tornadic activities. One was coming across Texas at an RV park on the 4th of July weekend. The other 3 have been on the field at Oshkosh. And it's usually the Saturday before people start coming in. I don't know why. It is right at the beginning of the show. But everybody's like, are you going to go to the museum? Why? So there could be a collective mass of humanity right there where the roof gets ripped off, or
right.
Ride it out in the RV.
Yeah, we've had a couple of pretty significant weather events while we were there, and that thing is held up pretty well. It has a nice front to back ratio.
It does?
We get on 20 meters. It does pretty well, actually. We have to remember to turn north from time to time to get some Canadians, because otherwise we only get a couple. But we generally kind of migrate through the day and turn it around from kind of southeast to southwest. It's not a super, it has a pretty good beam width in the front. So we get, a fair number of Californians by evening as the sun's headed that direction. In the morning, we get a lot of people from the southeast. It's very impressive. And
we've got a real sophisticated rotor for it, don't we?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a tagline that we tie to it and then try to find some place to tie it off
so the wind doesn't continue rotating.
Yeah, so it can't just spin up there. And then at the very top, there's a nice little Comet GP3, I think it is. And so just a dual bander. We hooked that up to the Icom 9700. And again, it works really well. Simplex certainly around the field and all around town. Yeah, so we can pick up all the folks coming in to the show in the morning and around the field during the day. And we're flipping around through the local D-Star stuff around Wisconsin, picking up folks around town and around the state.
Yeah, it was fun setting it up. I got to operate like the first 4 hours and then never got to touch the radio again because of staying busy with work and meetings and things like that. But just watching you guys operate, talking to the people that come up and things like that. I mean, I've even had people knock on the door of the coach because I stay there at night. Just ask me, what antenna is that? And introducing themselves with their call sign. And I mean, we had a couple pilots going, well, I'm hearing an N number. No, that's not the tail number on the aircraft. That's my call sign. And then we explain that. But hams have gotten where they know where we are. They come find us.
Well, and you see, it's pretty common for folks to come up and they're walking through the warbirds and I saw that hex beam and I had to come see what that was, right? So they recognize it. This last year, even I didn't operate that much. We had so many people coming back several times actually to operate for hours at a stretch, and they were pretty excited. One of the guys brought back all his buddies and had them all on the air. They weren't hams. I think he was trying to get them all hooked and
Wait a minute. Now, see, you're starting to do what I do. I travel so much, I forget what show I'm at.
Oh.
You're forgetting which year of Oshkosh. That was 2 years ago, dude.
Oh, was that the Princeton guys? Was that 2 years ago?
That was Andrew. Andrew came in with his buddies, and he made each one of them make 5 Qs before he had let them go.
That was 2 years ago?
That was 2 years ago, man.
Yeah.
This year, you had the 11-year-old walk around the corner. CW, right?
Right. Yeah. The kid.
He walked around curious, and all of a sudden, I'm getting a text because I'm in a conference call inside the bus, and you send me a photo. 11-year-old kid sitting there operating CW and just commanding the pileup.
He was doing great. It was impressive. Yeah, those guys. So a lot of these guys came in. Was very impressive to see them operate. They were incredibly excited to do it. They came back. Several of them came back several times over the course of the week to operate more than once. So it's a great opportunity to go see some air show and go wander around the birds a little bit, and then come play radio.
Now, we can't forget Matt. Matt gave us a good source of cheese curds from Wisconsin.
I didn't get any of those cheese curds.
You look at me like I share food, right? Yeah, you got to fight for it. I raised 5 boys. You learn, grab your food quick and hide it. But Matt came up with his family. They would talk to people. They'd help us out. His kids, his youngest is growing so much. And then they introduced us to Merv and her husband. Her husband was the pilot of the F-16 that kept flying around during the air show.
Oh, interesting.
So
I don't remember that. I don't think I heard that.
You were at the same event, dude.
Yeah, I don't think I heard that.
He
story.
sat there and was talking to us, and he's in his fatigues from the F-16, and then finally he goes, "Hey, I need to go get to the flight line," and he was actually sitting there operating some on VHF.
Nice. Yeah, Matt is super helpful, and yeah, the family. He's there operating mostly the VHF station. He takes over HF from time to time. And he is like super helpful when people come by. We have more people coming by just to ask questions, which makes it a little hard to operate, right? Because like you certainly want to answer the questions when they're there, but it does make it a little more complicated when we're trying to operate and still have an opportunity to talk around.
Wait a minute. It just struck me. You said you didn't operate much?
Not as much as I have in the past.
Dude, you were geeking out, walking around with an iPad.
Well, there's that.
And what were you doing?
FT8.
On what?
That was the iPad with the 705 and a little. It was actually pretty impressive how well that thing did. I had to buy one afterwards. So I resisted for a long time because I'm not really a QRP guy, but that thing was pretty cool. It was pretty fun playing with FT8 on the iPad with that thing sitting on the corner.
Well, you were already swearing at me because you're not really an Apple fanatic, and you're like, I had to buy this damn thing.
I had to go buy the iPad too, right? Because I have an Android tablet. It's like I had to go buy an iPad. I thought I'll do that. I'll play with it. Well, because it does it would run my 9700 and stuff too. So I thought, yeah, it's like, but the 705 would run an FT8 just off a goofy little whip on the front of the. I don't even remember you gave me that. Is that one of the? I forget what it even is.
Was that
the little antenna?
Was that the AH705 or with a wire or?
It was like.
Was that
no, it was a buddy
Hole?
stick. It was the buddy stick. That's what it was.
Oh, the one that Chris did a real nice job with it, with the carbon fiber tripod with the bungees, like the more modern tents that you put together.
Yeah, it's very slick, but it looks like it's just it's a whip and a wire, right? And yeah, we did surprisingly well just sitting there, pressing CQ on the tablet and.
But again, but you haven't quite hit what I was talking about. You were walking around.
Oh,
you
yeah.
were untethered.
Yeah, I was mostly hanging out at the picnic table in the shade.
But how were you doing it?
So the tablet, what is it? It runs the
Marcus's
software, and then the very clever German naming scheme, the SDR control software for Icom.
Well, before anybody gets offended, you spent quite a few years in Germany. You speak German, so it was kind of tongue-in-cheek there?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Yeah, it's just, I thought it was funny that it's named exactly what it is. It's like, if it was in German, it would be one big word. Anyway.
How many letters?
I was just trying to think of what gender it would be. But anyway, it would be one big word because that's how they do their compound words, and it's just the description of the thing. And so anyway, that's the software. It works on iOS devices. It presents a pretty nice display. It was fun. I played around with it briefly.
I'm going to have to spell it out for you because you're never going to get there.
What is?
You were doing it wirelessly.
Oh, the Wi-Fi.
Thank you.
Yes. You said it was wireless.
Finally.
Yes.
So any of you guys watching this going, look at these two idiots just going at it. This is the kind of fun that we have at Oshkosh. Everybody around there is laughing. We're having a real good time. And we work a couple thousand queues. Yeah,
we did. It was, it's very fun, actually. We got a lot of people actually comment that, oh, I wish I could be there, or I haven't been there in so long when they find out we're at Oshkosh.
I had one ham who retired as an engineer from Pratt & Whitney send me a packet that had their decals, had history about the engines and things like that, about
cool.
Some of the warbird aircraft. I mean, that was incredible. Even talked to guys that flew in either one of the conflicts. Got to meet a couple of pilots from the Red Tails. I think there's only one still surviving.
Yeah, he was one of the guys was walking around, right? Yeah.
Surprising that he's that old and still walking around, very healthy, very fit looking. But to talk to the guys that would then tell us, well, I used to work on this or I used to fly that. It is great to hear the people talk about what we're doing, and then to describe that right there was, it snuck up on us. It was an A-10 Warthog. We didn't hear it. We heard the pyro words,
right,
quietness, and then as it flies by.
So every afternoon we've got the air show to compete with.
Right.
That goes on for several hours. So there's a lot of noise there and lots of cool aircraft flying by. Wednesday night, fortunately, after we shut down, they have, it was Wednesday and Saturday nights. They have the nighttime air show, which when I first heard that, I thought that is the dumbest thing ever. Who's going to see a bunch of aircraft flying around in the dark? And turns out it's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, this year was really cool because they ended up having a bunch of drones augment what was flying in the air at that time. But yeah, you try being it when they're lighting off all the fireworks in the RV. Oh my gosh. You don't try to go to sleep early.
There's
on Wednesday and Saturday nights.
Right. Big fiery finale. It's very impressive. I just sent it recently to some friends, and I noticed on the EAA website they have the video of at least the Wednesday night show, and so I sent it to some friends. I said, this still does not capture. It is not the same thing as being there, but it's better than the video I shot, which was pretty marginal.
So I haven't asked you yet, but are you ready to do it again?
I'm absolutely ready to do it again. Yeah. Yep.
All right.
It's always a little warm for me being from the Pacific Northwest, but
you don't melt.
But I can deal with it.